Hi everyone listening, my name is Julie Simonson and I will be your host today. Welcome to today's podcast here at Money Talk. I have invited Emily Christensen, who's an expert in outsourcing and insourcing, and Michelle Black, Foreign Minister of United States of America, over to discuss Trump's idea of insourcing and a more independent USA. Welcome to you guys. Emily, can you tell me a bit about what the background for this idea is, moving production and manufacturing back to the US?
In America, up to 85% of all the lost jobs have been lost to automation. So even though America is producing more than the country ever has, it's with fewer people because the whole process has become way more efficient than before. It's a result of outsourcing to other countries because the jobs were sent to countries with lower labor costs. Especially the so-called Rust Belt has been hit hard by automation. To the people who don't know, the Rust Belt refers to the towns and communities in the US where the local factory almost was the sole employer for someone who lived there. So when the factory closed, people were left with serious consequences and unemployment. People living in the Rust Belt are to a great extent the people who has voted for Trump because he told that he would bring those jobs back. He said that people wanted to hear and formulated himself in a way that seemed credible.
What is it exactly that Trump has done to move the production and manufacturing back to the US?
First of all, manufacturers has added 6 times more jobs under Trump than under Obama's last 2 years. This is a result of Trump's deregulatory policies and tax cuts that has added almost 400,000 jobs. One of the big reasons to the Americans' manufacturing boom is a key change in the tax code and a cut in the corporation tax that went from 38% to 21%, which encouraged US companies with corporate earnings sitting overseas avoiding high US corporate taxes to bring that cash back to America. So he wanted to bring back companies that move their production abroad.
I'm guessing that some consequences has followed and will follow with insourcing back to the United States, both for the country itself but also with the countries who, to a great extent, trade with the US. Am I right in that claim?
There will be some consequences in connection with bringing the jobs back to the US. A consequence is the technology. Companies are constantly improving, which results in new technology consisting of robots and other technologies taking over the jobs. The jobs have become modern and more efficient, which demands skills from the workers. Many American workers simply don't have the skills to work in today's modern factories. By bringing the jobs back is the intention to reduce the unemployment, but if the American unemployment citizen doesn't have the skills, then the insourcing doesn't have the right impact. But there are also some consequences that not only affects the US but also other countries. For instance, their trading partner, who could be China. A lot of the outsourcing from USA have been moved to China because of the low wage. When the US insources, they are bringing back jobs from China and therefore taking away jobs from the Chinese people. The result is a growing unemployment in China. All the Chinese people who are working for an American company are losing their job because of insourcing in the US. On the other side, there will be some positive consequences. For example, insourcing is bringing back the jobs to the unemployed American citizens. More Americans get a job again and they can take care of themselves and their family, and they will start spending money. Their expenditure will raise and they will contribute to the economy of the US.
If you should compare Trump to Obama, what are the biggest differences in proportion to insourcing?
I would say that Trump is more optimistic than Obama about bringing the manufacturing back to the US. Trump wants to bring the outsourced production back, but if you ask Obama, this isn't possible. But he would like to stop the companies from outsourcing jobs. Obama once said in a speech about insourcing, every multinational company should have to pay a basic minimum tax, and every penny should go towards lowering taxes for companies that choose to stay and hire in the United States of America. Give them a bigger tax break. He mentioned that every company have the right to outsource jobs, but they shouldn't get a tax deduction for doing it. He would prefer that the money should be used to cover moving expenses for companies that decide to bring jobs home. He didn't mention Donald Trump by his name, but he said sometime before the new president election that much of it is funded by politicians who would actually make the problem worse rather than better. This gives us a clear picture of the way Obama wanted to bring the manufacturing back to the US. He would prefer open borders when it comes to, for example, trade, but he would still like to bring the production back to the US. When it comes to Trump, he promised to be the greatest job producing president in the US history. He created 4.7 million jobs in his first 2 years, but he pledged to create 25 million jobs in the next 10 years, so there is still a long way. To create those jobs, Trump promised to boost the economic growth 4% per year. He wants to create well-paying jobs and not just low-wage service positions. Trump's plan includes an America First trade policy, rebuilding infrastructure, and tax cuts. He wants to end the outsourcing and bring jobs back from Japan, Mexico, and China. Trump has made a trade war with, first of all, China by imposing tariffs or quotas and by making tax cuts in favor for the company who keeps their production in the country, as mentioned earlier. Trump's goal is to create more jobs in USA. That might also work in the short run. It will give a competitive advantage to domestic producers. Their prices will be lower when we compare. The result will be more orders from the local customers, their business will grow, and they can add more jobs. In the long run, a trade war can cost jobs. It depresses economic growth for all countries involved, and it might also trigger inflation when tariffs increase the prices of import. The main difference is that Trump wants to move jobs back to America from China, Mexico, and Japan, and Obama wanted to keep the jobs and make new jobs in America. Obama was more realistic, not because Trump's idea isn't realistic, but he needs to face the problems it might cause in the future. You can say that Obama thinks a little more about what will happen as a cause when Trump is opposite. Both Obama and Trump appears credible because of their really eloquent language. They know what they're talking about and uses the right words and body language. This is a matter of course because they were both elected as a president and that gives some kind of credibility. Trump appeals more to the audience feelings than Obama did. Obama spoke more about facts and realistic opportunities, when Trump gives hope to the people. Trump has more unachievable goals, but by speaking to the audience feelings, he makes them believe in him.
Finally, I would like to ask you guys, has it paid and will it pay USA to insource, and is Trump's idea of insourcing realistic?
To a certain extent, yes. Trump has succeeded with creating more jobs to Americans by creating a new tax reform and new government policies as he promised, but Trump has told the Rust Belt towns and communities that he will get their former jobs back to them. Going many years back in the industrialization, which is simply not possible. Trade deals are not the only reason that manufacturing jobs have declined, and it's unrealistic to expect that you can bring the jobs back to the exact same places where they were lost over the past decades. Instead, he needs to understand how automated companies are thinking. He needs to create a highly skilled workforce who, because of their education and skill level, cannot just be outsourced to countries with low labor costs. There is no way that, for example, textile manufacturing are coming back because these jobs pay way too little and the American people certainly don't want to pay more for the clothes they wear. What Trump needs to realize is that he can't bring jobs back that for sure is cheaper to produce abroad. Instead, if he wants to bring manufacturing jobs back, the new factories needs to be more automated than the ones that shut down, and by that a few of the old manual jobs are coming back and some jobs will be created. But there is a risk. As Emily told earlier, it might work in the short run, but there is a risk that it might cost jobs in the long run. Trump wants to keep the production in the country and therefore he wants to make it more expensive to import from China by supporting tariffs, duties and other forms of protectionism to give domestic industries a competitive advantage. He started a trade war, and it is this trade war that can be a downside of the insourcing and Trump's idea of a more independent USA when it comes to trade and production. It depresses economic growth for all countries involved, and it might also trigger inflation when tariffs increase the prices of import. So, to answer your question, yes, Trump's idea of insourcing is realistic because the new tax reform has succeeded and he has created more jobs. But Trump has promised something to the Rust Belt communities that he unlikely can fulfill.
And on that note, I think we'll round this discussion off. Thank you for your time.